Well, somebody who went from one world to the other is now your NXT Women's Champion, and that is Shayna Baszler for her first time here on Busted Open. Appreciate the time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's a long time coming, right?
Yeah, but you know what? We have it here, and that means something because it is a holiday according to Bully. It's Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. So this is a very special day here on Busted Open.
Yeah, it's fitting, too, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so, because you are a star because you're the NXT Women's Champion.
Yes.
Shayna, can you compare for me? I want to use the word fun as the foundation for my next question. How much more fun, or maybe not, are you having in the world of WWE than you had in the world of mixed martial arts?
I think I'm having more fun just based on the fact that it's another, it's another avenue, and it's novel, and I'm enjoying it right now. And I had that for a long time in MMA, but I think where I had fought so long, it became routine, and I think that happens with everything eventually. So it's just like shaking up kind of what I've done, and it makes it new and fun and exciting. I'm having a blast.
What about the world of pro wrestling has been the most fun for you?
I think I've always said that MMA fandom, as a fandom, they're really toxic. And I've had several people that cover multiple sports, and I think just the way I guess there's a little more appreciation. And no, of course you have cruddy fans everywhere, but I think that there's a little more appreciation in the pro wrestling world than I was accustomed to getting, especially running with the people I ran with and things like that. So I think just the switch in the way the fans appreciate what you do, even if they hate you, I think they can kind of appreciate the work that you do in there,
I can totally understand that. And Shayna, what was it like for you, just a few weeks ago in New Orleans in front of a sold-out crowd, almost 20,000 fans, to win that NXT Women's Championship?
Man, it's all the affirmation you need. It's hard because fans don't see the hours you put in the gym and the extra work you do and who's there last and who's there first every day, and winning the title is all the affirmation you need that it's being noticed, your work is paying off, and so beyond everything, it's I don't even know what the word is. Like, it's gratifying to know that you're all the work you put in, and it goes back before, all over the years. Just everything adds up, and it's appreciated and noticed, and
Shayna, with one of the things that I had said earlier in the show was, I believe with your success and with Ronda's success, that there are many fighters, male and female, within the world of MMA who are taking notice of this and are very quietly, they would like to be a part of all this, to the dismay of many MMA fans. Do you think that there's a large portion of guys and gals in that world who are now, their eyes have been open to the success that you have both had and want to come over here also?
I think it's two sides to a coin. I think they see a lot of success and they see us having a good time, and they want in on that. They want to take part in that, which is awesome. But I think at the same time, there's a misconception about it being easier or something along those lines, where they, well, I do this, so I can do this. That would be great. And I think so. On the other side of that, the understanding will come a little bit slower of how difficult pro wrestling is, but I think just getting a different set of eyes as far as people that were into MMA and maybe they dismissed pro wrestling will pay attention just because Ronda or myself happens to be on a card, and I think that in where I come from, training with Josh Barnett and Billy Robinson, and that, MMA and pro wrestling have a very shared history. And I think the MMA side has forgotten more of that history than maybe the pro wrestling side has, where it all has kind of the same origins. So I think rather than this being this new thing that everyone thinks that we're doing, we're just kind of throwbacks to what pro wrestling used to be.
I like that. And Bully and I talk about it on the show, Shayna, a lot. Like, I'm not an MMA fan, but I don't dislike MMA. And I think a lot of wrestling fans are like that as well. They respect it, but they may not necessarily watch it, and they definitely don't hate it. Why is it that MMA fans seem to hate pro wrestling?
I think it just goes back to that misconception that I don't know why it is or where it happened that they think pro wrestling is easier, or there's a misconception that it's like a downgrade. When the reality is, the guys like Billy and those guys back in the day, you couldn't work pro wrestling until you'd been in a fight, which is basically an MMA fight in today's terms. And so there's just this, I don't know when it happened, but there's a misconception that pro wrestling is easy, or it's the the downgraded version of MMA, and I think it's something that if people that have paid attention to my MMA career, I always waved the pro wrestling flag, being a catch wrestler in MMA. And it's funny because now that I'm wrestling, I'm waving this like we've all been fighters flag.
Yeah.
But it's all the same, and I think there's somewhere it got so separated, the paths of MMA and pro wrestling, that they forgot about each other. When I think my whole stance from the beginning and from my coaches, even in MMA before I even thought about doing pro wrestling, has always been, this has all been from the same place. So, Josh and Billy wouldn't ever have let me even climb between the ropes if I didn't understand that and the history of that. So I'm glad, and it's almost like a huge, important mantle to take up, that I feel kind of responsible to show people that,
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Shayna, what did you find more difficult to do? Defend against another woman choking you out, or having to entertain people in the world of pro wrestling?
I think pro wrestling is harder than MMA. The stresses are different. I think, and this might be just because I spent so long fighting, but standing behind the curtain to go out, whether you're wrestling or fighting, feels exactly the same to me. The same, like the anxiety to get in there, But that might just be, that's always what I have known, so it just feels the same. But, and the unknowns, in some respects are different in MMA. But I feel like, everybody wants to razz on like Punk for crossing over to MMA. But I think, having been deeply entrenched at the top levels of both worlds, that you will find more wrestlers could cross over and be moderately successful. And I'm talking I'm not saying they're going to come over and be main event UFC world beaters, but they will be moderately successful in MMA than MMA fighters could cross over and find success in wrestling. There's so much more that goes into it than just we're playing around and pretending to MMA. That's not what it is at all. And I think, I don't know, you can't, your brain has to always be on. And in an MMA fight, you train with your brain on all the time so that you could shut it off in the fight and just do what needs to be done. But like in wrestling, your brain always has to be on. You know, I don't know how to explain that any better. But
well, in the octagon, you have to worry about your offense and your defense. If the people are not necessarily entertained, that's not a big deal, because in the octagon, your job is not to entertain. Your job is to win or lose. In the world of pro wrestling, it's offense, defense, and entertaining. And that entertainment is a weight that weighs on you. I mean, I know how it weighed on me as a wrestler for 30 years. Tell me how that weight of entertaining weighs on you once you get in the ring.
Well, it's like you said, in MMA, the bottom line is the win or the loss. And it's funny because the fandom that I talked about before, that's really all they care about as well. You could get your butt handed to you for an entire fight and then just accidentally catch someone and win. And the fans will talk about you being the best fighter ever, when really it was like kind of a fluke, I guess. But like in wrestling, sometimes, and I know as a fan when I've been to shows, you don't even remember who won or lost. You just remember the emotions you felt in the match. And that's what I think every pro wrestler really strives for. If a pro wrestler, a wrestler really loves wrestling, and they're really working at being the best wrestler they can be, they want to invoke emotion in you, so you remember the emotion, whether that's, in my case, whether it's, I think Shayna's the coolest, she beats people up and it looks crazy, or I think Shayna, I hate her so much, I can't believe if you're feeling emotion, that's more important than anything else in the match. I mean, obviously there's things I don't want to, a lot of things you have to pay attention to, but it does no good for me to win a match if you don't care. But in MMA, if you don't care, you still look it up, and I won the match, and I still move up, And I think if people, so in the early days of MMA in Japan, they kind of, and because Japan kind of understands this whole shared history of pro wrestling and MMA, they will book matches. There's guys that lost all the time, but they were really entertaining to watch fight. And they would book them on main cards all the time in the early days of MMA. And it's just, over here in the West, and to legitimize the sport and everything like that, we kind of had to get away from that and start matching up based on record and stuff. But it's just, if you have to worry about entertaining and also performing well in the ring, I think it's this whole added element. And I don't understand sometimes the disconnect that a lot of MMA fans have with that. If I could just get in a wrestling ring and just worry about winning, a lot of the pressure would be off,
Yeah. And of course, we can watch Shayna beat people up every Wednesday on the WWE Network. And my question is about NXT that you can see on Wednesday nights. You as champion, who's next? We saw Kairi Sane beat you at the Mae Young Classic, so I'm wondering who's the next challenge for you on NXT?
Whoever wants to try to step in there. I don't think there's anyone that's wanting any of the business right now. Things are changing now, and I think the girls are realizing it, and they're having to take a step back and think about the way things have been done and the way things are doing before they think about getting in there with me. So we'll see.
Yeah, and again, congratulations on winning that NXT Women's Championship. And the last question from me, Shayna, and thank you so much for the time today. You've been tremendous. Is what did you think of Ronda Rousey's debut at WrestleMania 34?
If you can imagine seeing something, let's take something completely unrelated. Like you see someone play the guitar, and you're like, awesome, I think I want to play the guitar. If someone said to you, yeah, you can play the guitar, but your very first concert is going to have to be in this huge stadium at this huge show. That's going to be your first time ever. How many people would sign up for that? I think it's pretty ballsy what she did to have her first, like, yeah, I love this wrestling stuff. Okay, but you're Ronda, so your first match is going to have to be at the biggest event in the entire industry. Is that cool? And for her to just go, yep, and then get in the gym every day and work to get there, and the results showed, like, that's crazy.
And Shayna, last question from me. Based on where you're at right now, you are the NXT Women's Champion. If you were given a choice to stay in NXT and continue to grow or go to the main roster tomorrow, what would you rather do?
There's always things to learn. I don't know that I'll ever feel like I need to go anywhere else. I will take opportunities that come. My coach, Josh, he has a saying, and it's the body's a submission waiting to happen. So wherever the most bodies are lined up for me to go after is where I'm willing to go. It's not about the letters behind the names. It's about the bodies, you know?
All right. She's all about fighting and then knocking those bodies down. I love it. Shayna Baszler, NXT Women's Champion. Again, you can see NXT on the WWE Network every single Wednesday night. Shayna, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Thanks, guys, for having me. I'd love to come back on.
You're welcome anytime. You're in New York. Come to the studio.
Awesome.
And we got
good luck with everything.
Thank you very much.
I mean, Shane, I could talk to you an hour about Billy Robinson. I mean, you definitely have to come back on the show.
I will.
Okay, Shayna Baszler, your NXT Women's Champion. Good stuff from Shayna Bully.
No, absolutely. I learned a little bit more about her, and she said something that was huge. Her admission as an MMA fighter, her admission that she believes that pro wrestlers could have more success in the octagon than MMA fighters could have in the world of pro wrestling. And it's so true. And I know she was trying to stay away from the fake word, but that's the way, that's the way MMA fans look at wrestling, and that's the way they look down on it. Oh, it's fake. It's fake. There's nothing fake about pro wrestling. It's predetermined sports entertainment. Yes, the physicality is very real. But when I tell you how much more difficult it is to entertain than to have offense or defense, it's true. Dave, think about it. You step into the octagon. What do you have to do? You either have to win or you're going to lose, right?
Yep.
That's it. You don't have to worry about people cheering or booing or popping or not popping. You just got to go win or lose. In wrestling, it is so much more difficult to go out there and entertain while trying to make it look like you're going to win or make it look like you've lost convincingly.
And the other thing, too, is that after seeing somebody like Shayna and obviously Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania, and you mentioned it before, how many more MMA fighters are going to want to move into that world of pro wrestling?
They have to. It's human nature. They look at, MMA fighters are legitimately, they just fight after fight after fight and what is really the payoff? I mean, who's making great money in the world of mixed martial arts these days?
I couldn't tell you.
Maybe a handful, if that, maybe a couple. I can tell you that guys, even lower end guys, and when I say lower end, I just mean like not as human beings or wrestlers, just like lower end on the card. Even lower end guys in the card in the world of WWE or pro wrestling are doing really well. And if those MMA fighters were to find out just how well those guys and gals were doing, they would jump in a heartbeat. And they want to jump in a heartbeat right now just because they see the superstardom that girls like Shayna and Ronda are achieving. They all want a piece of that, but they know they can't come out and say it because the MMA fans might look down on them like, oh, you want to go be a pro wrestler? You want to do that fake stuff? Come on over to our world of quote unquote fake stuff. Live our fake lives. Be on the road 300 fake days a year. Live in and out of hotels 300 fake days a year. You ask Kurt Angle what was more difficult, winning an Olympic gold medal or being a pro wrestler. See what he tells you.